Good morning, good afternoon, and good night. Today, we are talking about one of the most famous British authors in the whole history, not only of British literature, but in the world literature. Because Britain has had, as many other countries like the USA, many literature authors that really came across, especially in the 20th century, and that were some of the at the level of the Hollywood stars that went in America at that time. Today we are talking about Roald Dahl. He wasn't originally British, however. He was of a Norwegian family. His father died when he was 3, and his mother needed to um, how do you say that? Like afford his own education, like get in charge of him. Like he needed he needed and they needed to do their school in home. However, they traveled to Britain just after his father was dead, and there he was born. He was born in 13th of September in 1916 at Wales, Britain. He died at 23rd of November 1990, Oxford, Britain. So, this man, though he was born and he died in the same country, that doesn't mean he didn't wander around the world, and he did. His father died, as we mentioned, but his father's wish was for him to go to an English school. What was with English schools? English schools were at the time one of the best, not only in education, but also in restriction and in discipline. They were one of the most well known in the world at the level of the Americans. So, his father wanted him to go at this school, form himself, and then go as an adventurer. Roald Dahl probably put him Roald Dahl as the name that they suggested for one of the most trusted and most famous explorers of Norway. He was also called Roald Dahl. So, what happens with our little Roald Dahl? Well, he went to the school every day, like any normal child, but he noticed something, and is that the English teachers at his school treated him very bad. They make horrible punishments at those times, and they have almost the same authority to punish the children as the fathers did. However, this didn't result to be a bad thing to Roald Dahl's youth, because he learned a lot of things in the school that helped him write his future majestic pieces. Like what? Well, for example, we get Matilda. Matilda is a book written by Roald Dahl, which I really recommend. I won't spoil a lot, but when he says that Matilda has some horrible parents, that they are disgusting parents that don't care about her education and let her in a normal school in England. And Matilda has horrible teachers that treat in a horrible way all the children of the school. Matilda is the main character, and the antagonist is one of the teachers, the actual like boss of the teachers, and she is Mrs. Trunchbull. And that's how the story goes. However, I won't spoil any, so you can read the book, and well, you definitely would enjoy it, and it is really good. So, Roald Dahl gets his mind and his vision of all school, especially of adults, on this school, and he learns a lot how to treat with this. He don't write any books for now. In his own words, when he was old, he said, like all people can write a book for children. You young people can't. So he at this time didn't even minded to be a writer like he was. So then, after he finished his school, he went to Egypt to be a sort of explorer. He really liked adventures and really loved like architecture, and really wanted that Egyptian desert. Well, that was what he wanted. And Egypt at that time was controlled by Britain, with a British Egypt. So he, like at age of in his 20s, was already learning a lot of things here, and he didn't wanted to get a job in Britain itself. But then something came that really changed his life. World War II. World War II erupted, and Italy tried to invade Egypt through its colony of Libya. Libya before was an Egyptian colony, a Libyan colony. So Italy wanted to invade Britain because they were enemies. So what happened? That Roald Dahl was enlisted in the RAF as a British pilot, and he fought against the Italians with all the British army at El Alamein and Libya. However, he had numerous accidents, and in one time, an Italian fighter was able to, well, just throw him off his plane. He had an accident whom he escaped narrowly, and he remained with many wounds, but after, in mid-war period, he went recovering and was sent now not to the Air Force, but the United States. What happens is that the British, especially Winston Churchill, the Prime Minister at that time, wanted to have an intelligence service in the USA to know what did the US people thought about entering the war. Churchill, of course, being the side of the Allies, wanted America to join the war on his side, and he wanted to see what the Americans were thinking so he could act accordingly. So, he selected a lot of pilots of the RAF already experimented, amongst those were Roald Dahl and other of his companions, and he sent them to the USA. So in the US, Roald Dahl worked as an agency spy, well, what we can call a spy, for Britain. No? And finally, when the war ended, Roald Dahl ended his service as a spy. But what did he do now? He was now stuck in the USA without any job. Well, he said, he had an encounter with another another man of the RAF, an old comrade of the RAF, when he wanted to publish a novel about the horrors of war and to say to the people that World War II was a great mistake to go in. So what he said was for him to go to Britain and Roald Dahl to remain in the USA and publish it when it was ready. Roald Dahl was the one that would verify and write all the article. So, when Roald Dahl wrote the article and went to Britain to verify the article to his friend got a whole story. His friend discovered that a whole story of the war had been written by Roald Dahl. It was about some little creatures that went into planes, and that pilots believed that those were the ones that caused a lot of trouble in the plane. So it was a sort of a little story for kids, but against the war that also was for adults. So that friend of Roald Dahl said him that he was all a writer all in. So Roald Dahl, from that time, he began with all his writing, and he didn't want so famous after he made a lot of books. He had to wait a lot. But with Matilda, when he published Matilda was sort of the boom. This book was the one that really taught how situation in that time was for the teachers and the children at school, and there's a notable thing among all books of Roald Dahl. By the way, I will mention some of the Roald Dahl books. Among them are the already mentioned Matilda, Mr. Fox, James and the Giant Peach, The Witches. Well, there are many books that Roald Dahl wrote. There are more than 200 or so, and he used to write them in a little house that he had next to his house. No, it was like, how to say it? Yeah, it was like a little house only for him. So he sat on a chair. He put himself all comfortable with a coffee and wrote, well, all the time, 4 hours a day. And so he learned how to write stories by remembering the memories that his mother had taught him. She all times at night, told him and some of his brothers and sisters, of course, all the stories that she knew and all stories from Norway. And so that's how he began. So he began having a lot of success, and most of the great classics that he wrote, well, of course, were published in films. So with the films, with Hollywood, he grew, well, a lot much more famous, and well, then he married in the USA with, of course, a Hollywood actor, we say. Um, and well, he lived really happy there. He didn't went any other service in war, and he wrote, well, many classics because of the English literature that are known worldwide, of course. Especially the thing that really helped him was the films, because, well, almost every book that he wrote was sooner or later put into films. So that was a great success that he had met. And also that there's a thing that notes, well, no, not, we don't say notes, we would say there's a thing that all books, well, or almost all books he wrote about children's books, have in common, and is that they plays the adults, mostly the fathers or teachers, as the antagonists, you know, and they put the children or any other animals that they are accompanied with as the good guys, the protagonists. For example, in the already mentioned Matilda. Matilda is a protagonist, and she has some horrible parents that treat her really bad, and besides, the teacher also treats her really bad. In James and the Giant Peach, we have James, which is a child of 4 years old that lives with his bad and furious aunts that, well, really don't like any children. So Roald Dahl's books have in common that they all praise children and they all antagonize adults. That doesn't mean that Roald Dahl is against adults because he's an adult himself. That means that Roald Dahl he also says that there are some adults that are good. Mrs. Honey in Matilda is a good adult, and he doesn't say that all adults are bad. So Roald Dahl literature, I sincerely recommend Roald Dahl literature because it is really, really good. And well, Roald Dahl in the end died in 23rd of November 1990, Oxford, Britain, as I already said. And well, he's got a ton of books. You can choose. Well, they are in PDFs in Google if you search them. I would recommend, of course, in my opinion, to, well, before watching movies that, well, the Hollywood might put or these things, go and read the books for different reasons. First, the book is a lot better for your eyes, in the fact that you aren't watching just the television, and furthermore, it also increases your passion to read, because reading is a really good thing, and it is proven that it is really good for developing your brain. And besides, the movies contain a lot of information that isn't in Roald Dahl books. So I would, of course, recommend to, well, all the books I've mentioned of Roald Dahl are really, really good. However, don't watch the movies and go and read the books, because that is really, 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 really good. Roald Dahl, curious facts about Roald Dahl are that, for example, he always writes his books. Well, wrote, yeah, because he already died. On yellow paper and with 6 pencils. And he invented a small, how do you say that? Yeah, and a small artifact. So it is electric. So he puts in the pencils, and it does, and the pencils are already sharpened. So he's quite a good inventor. He also, it is calculated that he invented more than 250 words, and most of those words are in British dictionaries, well, English dictionaries, we would say. Also, he not only was a good writer or a spy or a British pilot, he also worked directly in first many films, and secondly in one of the treatments of a great sickness. I don't remember the name. It's a really weird sickness that his one of his daughters um like had. So he began like working with some experts, with doctors, to develop a new technique to, well, like yeah, to cure that illness. And he's really remembered for all his service he made for, well, Britain, America, and a lot of literature in the end. So I hope you liked the life of Roald Dahl. This is a short video, but well, here you can see how Roald Dahl well, wrote a lot of books. There's a lot of information in the internet as well. So I hope you liked it. And well, Nicholas Franklin has been talking to you. Bye bye.